even me, like as broken and as awful of a human that I thought that I was, right? Like, just pretty much a murderer because I had sex before I got married, you know? I was protected in that situation, and I've been told my whole life that I have to do everything a certain way and be perfect and be perfect and be perfect. And here I am being seen and watched out for, and I'm out of this horrible situation that could have gone so many different ways. And so that was like the first time I was like, oh, that's what a testimony is. And it kind of like set in motion, okay, well, like, what do I think? What do I feel? What are my views? This whole thing that I've been a part of my whole life, and it's been nothing but heartache and horrible for me. So really kind of like taking, okay, God and Mormons are not the same, which is really interesting to kind of like navigate through that.
Welcome back to That's Church. I'm Emily Call, here with my sister Ashley Sanders. Some stories don't unfold in straight lines. They move through faith and doubt, belonging and isolation, rules and intuition, until something cracks open and forces a person to ask, what do I actually believe? Who am I? Today's guest, Kelly Robinson, grew up in a high-demand religious environment in the South as a biracial girl, navigating a world and a faith that often struggled to make space for her full humanity. Raised with strict expectations around perfection, worthiness, and obedience, Kelly learned early on what it meant to quietly question and carry heavy internal conflict. As a teenager, Kelly experienced a life-altering moment that changed everything: her relationship with God, her family, and herself. It became the beginning of a long and courageous journey, separating God from religion, learning to trust her intuition, and redefining love, faith, and motherhood on her own terms. Today, Kelly is a single mom to 5 incredible kids, a business owner, and the founder of her own salon in Draper, Utah. Her story is one of resilience, healing, and sovereignty, and we're so grateful to share it with you. Before we begin, we want to invite you to join us for our upcoming women's event on March 7th at 6 p.m. The doors will open at 5:30, and this is at the Compass Gallery in Provo, Utah. If you have ever been to one of our events, they are absolutely amazing. You will not regret coming. This event will focus on becoming sovereign, claiming your story, honoring your agency, and building the beloved community. We would love to see you there. And now, our conversation with Kelly.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kelly. We're so excited to have you.
So excited.
So let's start. Yeah, I mean, of course. This is awesome. You and I met like 2 years ago, I think. And I think it was like we like slowly got to know each other. And I think I was a little intimidated by you at first. And maybe like a year in, like, I think we finally both kind of became a little bit more vulnerable with each other. And then I was so grateful and glad that I had met you, because I was just fascinated by your story. So we're just really so incredibly grateful that you agreed to do this, because I think it's definitely, you said yourself, it's definitely a story worth telling, and it's so true. So, let's start at the beginning and just tell us about your childhood growing up in the South as an LDS biracial girl.
Yeah, so I lived in Virginia for a time, but I was we moved a lot. My dad was a convert, and he converted when we lived in England, actually. He played basketball there. And then I spent my childhood in Texas, Missouri, and then Virginia. And then I graduated high school in California. I think it's interesting. A lot of my elementary school was in Missouri, which is very Bible Belt. It's very Methodist. It's very, they're not huge fans of Mormons, actually. If you think about it, we lived, not too far from the Liberty Jail. I went to all of the church history sites my whole entire childhood. Regularly, all of them. I've been to all of them multiple times. Adam on Diamond, you're like, there's a plaque there. Do we have to come here again?
Oh.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So I didn't really have, I knew that Mormons were different, right? Like I didn't really know anything else because that's just what we were. But I remember from a very early age, like elementary school, people being like, well, I didn't know that you guys were normal. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, what does that mean? Or having a biracial family. Like, I didn't know that you guys were going to be so nice. And like, again, I'm in elementary school. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We had a neighbor that my mom would kind of go back and forth with. She was very Methodist and didn't like Mormons. So, I mean, I was too little to really understand, but I just like know that they had a lot of discussions and we still got to play with the kids across the street. So it was fine. But I didn't really know how much of an impact that religion had on my childhood at that age. I'd say elementary school, middle school. I remember we couldn't do anything on Sundays, and I hated that. And I remember they'd be like, so do you want to go on a mission and like whatever? And I was like, knock on doors and talk to strangers? Like, nope, no thank you. That's not happening. Like, absolutely not.
Why would I do that?
Yeah. And then they're like, you have to marry a Mormon. And there was only a handful of kids, right, in my ward. And I was like, I'm not marrying one of them. Like, so I had no concept that it was like this big thing. And like, I have to marry one of those kids. Like, no, just not marrying like. So I always like, I feel like from an early age, I always was just like, I don't know about this. We were raised very strict, very followed the letter of the law as far as the religion went, and it was challenging. And then moving a lot, it was just kind of trying to understand, okay, so I have to follow these rules exactly, and I also have to navigate moving across the country multiple times, and I also have to navigate going from an all-white, essentially mostly white Missouri school to a mostly black Virginia school.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, in ninth grade, my first day, I wore an Abercrombie shirt. I never wore Abercrombie again after that.
Nice.
So,
How come?
yeah, so just like I got made fun of. They're like, oh, you think you're just white? And I'm like, well, in Missouri, Abercrombie's cool, but I guess it's not here. So,
Wow, I thought that was such a shock to the system. Just how the contrast in those two schools.
yeah, just the contrast of the schools and then just like the strict lifestyle that we lived. I think I was probably 14, maybe, the first time I was like, this can't be how life is. Like, this can't be what it is for everybody. I think it was probably like the first time that I like had that. I started to like really question, you know.
Interesting.
Wow. That's an early
Yeah.
age to really question. Well, I guess Joseph Smith was 14.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's low.
Yeah, crazy.
So, yeah. Pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, we were very strict. Like, it was very, we didn't do anything on a Sunday. Modesty was huge. I wasn't allowed to wear tank tops. I had to have shorts down to my knees. I went to girls' camp. I had to go to all of the activities, all of the things. Like, it was just very, whatever it was is what we did. We didn't drink caffeine. We didn't, I mean, I had, just one hole in my ears pierced, just as strict as you could possibly be is kind of what we followed. And I didn't love it. I mean, the Sunday thing was hard just because all my friends got to do stuff on Sundays, and I was like, I just don't get it. We never missed general conference. We never missed anything.
Yeah.
Anything. And if I did, then I, was in trouble. So
Really? Wow, so very
Yeah.
strict upbringing in the church.
yes.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't think I realized until I was older how orthodox Mormonism is. And because for us, it wasn't that as strict.
Right.
So it is it's one of those things where there's, different flavors, different brands, if you will, Mormonism.
Yeah.
And I could see how that would be very difficult to grow up in a household that's that strict.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early morning seminary. I was seminary graduate. 6 a.m. every morning had to be there. Yeah.
Oh, so hard to get up that early.
Yeah.
Especially as a teen. Oh, you just want to sleep.
And when you do belong to a smaller town, like with the smaller group of people that are LDS, it would be like, oh, this is just what LDS or what Mormonism is, and it would be harder to see outside of that. We grew up here in Utah and it's everyone's LDS. So for us, I feel like it was kind of the opposite way. Like, we just thought, I think we had like this instilled idea that people that are not Mormon are weird, and you kind of had the opposite effect. Like people thought you were weird.
They're like, so you have 6 moms, and I'm like, what? Like, oh, so you're one of those Mormons? So you like have a lot of moms and you give your money to the church? I'm like, well, no, I have 1 mom and tithing. Like, is that your
tithing? Yeah.
Tithing question marks?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even, I mean, when I started seminary, 9th grade in Virginia, and we had, I think on a good day, we had maybe like 12 people in our seminary class, but that was for, I think, 3 high schools and 9 through 12. So that was it. It was like me and my sister, this other kid and his brother, a couple of kids that were not active, but like would come to seminary sometimes. But yeah, just like a very small group.
So did you feel kind of ostracized from the other kids or by the other kids? And did you feel like you had like a camaraderie with those kids that were LDS or no?
Well, the boys that, like, they were brothers, they went to a different school. The only other ones that went to our school, me and my sister, I'll never forget them, that they would be, like, smoking weed on the side of the church. You're like, wait, you're Mormon? And you're like, yeah, we come to seminary sometimes.
Yeah, totally the forced by parents to be there. Kind of.
Yeah, you're like, okay.
Yeah, it would.
No, it's actually, I mean, yeah, and I think here it's such a cultural thing where everyone knows, like, and it's like comes up in conversation, like what religion you are. And for me, like, that was never like a topic of conversation necessarily. It's like, hey, do you like what I like? So let's be friends. It's not like, hey, are you Mormon? And people don't know what a Mormon is.
Okay.
A lot of them don't. It's like, oh, so you're one of those. They have like the, just like a very general, oh, so you're like a polygamist. It's like, no.
Just, yeah, that broad view.
Yeah, so because we had so many countries represented at my high school in Virginia, we had so many religions, we had, like in our young women, some of the girls went to Catholic school. So, yeah, so it's just a very different thing. It's like not on the top of your mind, where here it's just ingrained in everyone, whether you're Mormon or not, because it's such a part of the culture.
Definitely. I wish we had more of that. And I think it's getting more that way. Like my kids just are with other kids, and I mean, they just are all friends. And we also live in Midvale where it's a little bit less populated with LDS people. I mean, it's just a little bit different than the rest of the state. I feel like, I mean, not the rest of it, but than a lot of spots in Utah. I think that it's becoming less that way, but I think that's awesome. Like, I wish that it wasn't such a big topic of like, are you in or are you out? Like, it just feels like that, like you're either belong to the club or you don't belong to the club. And we have always felt very strongly that it's important for our kids to feel like to know what it's like to live in diversity and not be like the only the majority always, because they're white kids and white LDS kids in Utah, but at least in Midvale, we have felt like a little bit, in certain circumstances, some of our kids have been in like one of the only kids, the LDS kids in their class, and one of the only white boy. I had one kid that was the only white boy in his class, but like I claim that and I like that, but also we're still white and privileged and live in Utah, surrounded predominantly by LDS people,
Yeah.
So like I want to claim that, and I want to have my kids experience that. But I think without living outside of Utah, and I think you can't really experience it. So anyway, interesting, super interesting.
Yeah, it was really weird for me to move here, and people would be like, "So are you Mormon?" And I'm all like,
Why do you
is that
ask?
the first question that's coming out of your mouth? Like,
Yeah.
does it matter?
It's such a common question.
Yeah.
And I do think it's getting better. I think I think for one, there's a lot of people have left the church. And I think I read the other day that it's finally like, I think it's 50-50 in our state, like Mormon, the percentage of Mormons here versus the other Mormons. And I think that it's good for us to recognize that, it no longer applies to just assume that your neighbor is Mormon anymore. And probably shouldn't have been doing that to begin with. So I love it. I love that that's becoming less of the norm to just assume that someone is in the church.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, because then you have to like explain, like, well, I was raised that way, but like I'm good, and then they want to like talk about it, and you're like, no, like I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty nice thing. It's the whole thing.
Right. There's so much more to me. If you want to get to know me, let me know.
Yeah. But it's so interesting how you can spot a Mormon outside of Utah. You can spot one anywhere. Like I, traveled for work, and it's like the table where they're ordering Diet Cokes, and you're like, oh, you guys are Mormon? Are you from Utah? And they're like, how'd you know?
The BYU hat.
I think even without some of those like big markers, I've been in the airport before and been like, you're from Utah, and then you're from Utah and you're Mormon. Like, like it's like, I don't know what it is.
We know.
Yeah.
It's so obvious. We went to a synagogue, Ashley and I went to a synagogue, and they just started talking to us, and they're like, so in your church, and they just knew. And I tried so hard to like dress like different and like show my tattoo and my nose ring, but they still knew. Like, I don't know how you know, but you just know. It's so funny. From your perspective as a child, what was your parents' individual thoughts on religion? Like, what was your experience with them in their religion, and how did it impact their parenting of you and your siblings?
My dad, he grew up Southern Baptist, and he converted. They had been married probably 10 years, maybe. I was a baby. And so I'm not sure. My dad's a man of few words, so it wasn't really, his opinions didn't really like come through. It was more my mom kind of leading the charge, and this is what we're going to do. And for me, I'm a little more of a free spirit. I was always shy. I was like, I wanted to fit in. Like, I didn't, because I'm tall and mixed. You're raised in the church, and I think from primary, it's like your role is to be a mother and to be a wife and mother, and your husband has the priesthood. He makes the decisions, and that. I didn't really know about like the priesthood, blacks in the priesthood I wasn't like told about that for a while, but as you like start to learn, you're like, okay. And I remember there was one general conference, I must have been maybe 12 or 13, and they were talking about mixing races. And I remember being like, well, I'm mixed, so what do I do?
With this information.
What do I do with this information? And even like primary in the stories of Cain and Abel, it was like, well, your dad's black. I'm like, yeah. Like, what do you do with that? So, sometimes like if we wore our hair too wild or crazy, it was like, well, that's against the word of wisdom, or like just kind of, interesting
Oh.
things. And so it just became, there's like, okay, I don't know if this is made for me. And then you hear about, blacks in the priesthood, and there's all the excuses and all the things, and right, you're like, okay, I get it, but also not great, not a good look for the church. And any black person that you meet that's not LDS, if you tell them that, that's usually one of the first things that they bring up. Well, how can you be in that if they didn't give anyone, the same privileges until the 70s or whenever it was.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like, I do have 5 kids, which is insane, but so I guess I'm doing something right according to the church. But growing up, it was like, no, I want to have a job, and I want to do this, and I want to take care of myself, and I'm very independent. And so it was just kind of like, I don't know that this is necessarily for me, made for me. Yeah.
It's glitching out a little bit.
So interesting.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it wasn't lit till 1978, I'm pretty sure was the year, is horrible enough. But I mean, that's just my opinion. But then to be told that in a conference talk at around the age of 12, that was not that long ago either. So that would be shocking. And again, like I would feel the same way. Like, what do I do with this information? Because I'm sure it's nothing your parents talked to you about. And a lot of those things I feel like are kind of just swept under the rug, and, people try to avoid them and act like they never happened. When, like an apology or something that would go a long way with a lot of these issues.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And your mom, it's interesting to me that your mom did marry a black man, while being so strict in the gospel, if that was frowned upon by then, or back then, at that time. Do you have any insight as to that?
No, I have questions, but it's something that's been really interesting my whole life. Like, there's been a lot of experiences and a lot of things where you're just like, okay, but Dad's like, we're black, Mom. Hey, but we identify as, I identify as mixed because I'm not white. Like, I'm not black enough to be black. I'm not white enough to be white. It's kind of the space you occupy. So it's yeah, it is really interesting. I don't know. And I know there's a lot of people that they'll say, I don't see color, or I don't, and I don't like that. I have a hard time with that one, because you're like, well, it's there. Like, it's there.
That's part of me. Like,
Right.
That's part of, I don't see color. You're like, we all see it.
right.
The differences are what make us, you're like, we know all of the differences and the different things, but it is really fascinating that my mother would marry a black man. And I don't know.
Yeah. That's great that was never an issue for her. Like, as strict as she might have been, that was something that she maybe saw, not as an issue, which is exactly how it should be seen. So that's great to hear. You mentioned that everything was about your salvation, or tied to your salvation. And I'm just so curious to know, like, what does that mean? Was your mom very, like, focused on that if you made a mistake, or?
Yes, so
it'll be so hard as a kid.
Yeah.
We're already hard up.
It's already hard, yeah. Everything was about our salvation. Growing up, you hear a lot, well, I repent every day, so I'm ready to go to the celestial kingdom at any time. And getting to the celestial kingdom was the goal. Like, that's what we're going for. I was challenging because I think the agency piece, or the making mistakes piece, was kind of left out, where that's where you come to that space. Like, it was through my challenges and mistakes where I gained a testimony. And that was after I moved out. It wasn't even in my household. It was just like, okay, well, I have to share my testimony that the church is true, that Joseph Smith is a true prophet. Just like the
The motion.
you go through the motions. So we were not, it didn't go well if we made mistakes. It didn't go well if we had bad grades. It didn't go well. And by bad, I mean decent. So anything was tied to that. Even like I have anxiety, and I didn't even know I had that until I was an adult. Because if I said, I'm like, I feel like my heart is beating, I feel like I can't breathe, I feel like I can't sleep, like tied to like a test, or moving all the time was super stressful. And those things was like, well, you must be sinning, you need to repent, you need to read more scriptures, you need to read these articles, you need to go pray, type of solution. And I was probably like 25, and my therapist was like, Kelly, you have anxiety. And I was like, what's that?
Wow.
Wait, this is a normal human experience?
Like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
And having the language is so important. We interviewed my childhood best friend, who also grew up in the church as a woman of color, and she, talked about having postpartum depression, and she said, I didn't have the language for it. And I thought if I showed any sign of weakness, that I wasn't a good mom or a good member of the church. And so I think a lot of us don't, I think a lot of people grew up not knowing what it was, or the words to put to the emotion or the anxiety or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking back, it's like, oh, I had a really big test. And also, like, I'm super introverted. I was so shy and really quiet. And, I'm almost 6'2", so I stand out in a crowd, and then going from all these different places, which I don't think I even knew how to like articulate how that felt, like moving and being uprooted and all of that. So looking back, it's like, oh, you were just this kid with, in high school, like, oh, there it is. That's it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
There
is,
wasn't anything wrong with you. You just were, humans.
Right.
And experience in life.
You being as free-spirited as you are, and also, kind of like we mentioned, like we're already so hard on ourselves as teenagers and preteens, and so to have that extra guilt weighing on you of
constantly,
like, I've got to repent again. Like, I can't imagine how was that for you and your mom, like between your relationship with your mom?
I think that's when it started to separate. And also looking back, like, I am not very like adventurous. Like, I skipped school one time in high school, and I felt so stressed about it. And I couldn't handle skipping.
Not worth it.
No, it was, oh my gosh, it was so stressful. And it was like 45 minutes, and I was just so stressed out.
No.
Like,
So fun.
at my core, like, I'm not really like crazy rebellious. I don't like to do the wrong thing. Like, I try to make sure that I live honestly, and I'm just not that way. But because of that, such a strict space, you start to rebel. You start to, it like forces you to live a different life. It's like sticking a tank top in your backpack and changing at school. It's like all of those things to try to figure out who you are. But then you're also in this space where if you express that you want to do something different, then you're shamed and guilted into, why are you feeling that way? You shouldn't feel that way. You should just go pray for the
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would cause a wedge, I'm sure, between you and your mom. And I wish parents could see that all it's doing is like you mentioned, forcing your child to rebel, and also not trust you. Like, I'm sure you didn't feel like you could trust your mom with those thoughts and feelings. And
No.
it just seems like a missed opportunity for some bonding and conversations that could have been had between you two.
Yeah. And I think it's so hard because I remember being like, well, if we're just doing what we're supposed to and we're not allowed to make mistakes, then like, isn't that Satan's plan? Like, isn't that,
preach.
And so it's just, yeah, so I really struggled with the religion, and I, grew to like really be very resentful towards being LDS and growing up that way. Along with some of the experiences that were made even worse because of religion.
Tell us, so you moved around and quite a bit and had different experiences in each location. So you were around a lot of different religions growing up at the Bible Belt and things like that. So tell us about your experiences with different religions growing up.
So sometimes my mom would let me go to different churches, be like, okay, get me out of this 3-hour, sitting there, so boring, right? And my dad grew up Southern Baptist, so a few times we went to Texas and got to experience Southern Baptists, and they're loud, and the way that they praise. And I think going to different churches, you realize like, oh, okay, like Catholics are very quiet, Mormons are very quiet, Pentecostals, it's probably the most entertaining church I've ever been to. Love it.
I want to go to one so bad. I've talked to you both about this. I want to go to a Pentecostal so bad, but I haven't found one here yet. So I think I found a Baptist church that we're hoping to go to, but I'm working on it. But Pentecostals, harder to find in Utah. I don't know. Anyway, but I think it's fascinating. It's just like more big, and like they're the ones that like bark like a dog, or like the spirit.
Yeah, moves them. Yeah, the spirit moves them. They speak in tongues. Like the music is going.
Okay.
I've gone to a couple Christian churches a handful of times here, and for me, I think what I connect to the most is the music. I love music in general, and so I feel very connected to music as a whole. But I always enjoyed the ones where the music was going. So I definitely like that. But I think what I've noticed as I've gone to so many different churches across the country, like over the years, is it also, you're like, wait, if we're the only right church and the only whatever, it was always so interesting because I'm like, but I got something out of this sermon, or I got something out of this, or I felt something when I was there. So then you're like, wait, is that wrong? Is that bad? And so just kind of, you start to shift to a perspective. Like, yes, at some of churches I've been to, I'm like, okay, that's weird. But if you look at Mormons, you're like, well, that's weird too. So, yeah,
It's true.
But you could always, like, there would be testimony meetings, I would leave and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like that was the worst hour that I ever sat through. And then you go to a Pentecostal and you're like, yeah, we're trying to save you. And you're like, no, thank you. Like, I'm good, thanks. But, then is the piece of it here or there that you're like, oh, that was really insightful, or that really spoke to me. And so I think that's, yeah, I always love going to different ones. I'm fascinated by people. And so I always love to go sit through and see what their beliefs are, or what the experience is like. And yeah, I'm a fan of the ones with good music for sure.
That's well. I feel the same about music, and we went to the First Methodist Church in Salt Lake, and they started playing the organ, and I just like wept. I just was feeling it, and yeah, there's nothing that brings the spirit quite like good music.
Yeah, absolutely.
My daughter is a singer, and so we've taken our kids to different churches and things too, here and there, and she loves that they clap at some of them. She's like, that's what I want to implement into our church. I'm like, you just want to have the praise, like,
yeah,
sing and have a real clap for you. But yeah, you should. But it's true. We've been to some really beautiful sermons or really beautiful services where they've had amazing music. And I'm like, I want to just come for the music hour, and the sermons have been great too. And it's true. I'm so glad your mom allowed you to do that. And I think you've expressed to me before that she, as long as you were going to a church on Sunday, then that was okay, which is actually very, nuanced of her, like very non-traditional of her, which I think is really awesome and commendable. But I think that's kind of catching on, and that's kind of our goal, is to get people to kind of open their minds and look at things that are a little bit different than what they're used to. But we just talked to not a Bible scholar, but an LDS scholar that researches things like this, different religions and history within the LDS church and things like that. And he's LDS himself, and he's amazing. And we interviewed him earlier today, actually. And he has an analogy. I think it's really great. He says he wrote a book, and the analogy in the book it's called Restoration. And do you know Patrick Mason? Anyway, that's his name. But in the book, he talks about like a garden. Like we have this huge, big garden, and our church is just cultivating one part of it, like we may have the Book of Mormon or like Sealing Power or whatever. And then there's other churches that are cultivating a different part of the garden, and they all have good things. I mean, not necessarily all, but most of them have good things that contribute to the garden, And today he actually made the analogy of food. He's like we're sitting around a table and we have the Brussels sprouts and someone else has the mashed potatoes, and it's so true. Like, I think that, I think it's really cool that you organically discovered that, and almost you're like, wait, but why am I feeling the spirit here? And I think that's really beautiful. I think in Utah, and maybe just in our culture, or just maybe me personally, I was very much a rule follower as a kid as well, and people pleaser, but had like a free spirit as well. But I would definitely follow, and I always felt a little bit guilty, like, oh wait, is this wrong to like go? And I remember thinking like, ooh, this definitely doesn't feel exactly like our church and like the spirit. But I was like afraid to open my heart to it. I think I was afraid to open my mind and my heart because it was like ingrained in me that it would be wrong. And I don't know that anyone said that to me, but I think it's just something that I think it's because it's ingrained that this is the one true church. I think it's not necessarily that people listening are saying all of the other churches are bad. However, there is the saying, like the great, what is it? The
great abominable church.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some people say, anyway, it's a particular church or whatever, which is silly. But so maybe there's things like that, like just little things that are said throughout our lives that make us fearful in that way.
Well, for sure. And I think it's like, because it's always about like, let's bring other people into the truth. Let's bring them into, because we know the truth. We have it. We've got this thing. And so they're great. They're fine, but they're just not, they're missing that piece. And I think you do. It's not like it's like everyone's bad, but you hear that so much. And then it's like, well, how can I give this person a Book of Mormon? Or how can I get them to join what I've got? And then you're like, as I've lived all over the place, like you realize there's some really, really amazing people that I know are going to heaven, and they're not LDS, and there's some really awful, awful people in the LDS church. So even that, as a teenager, you're like, wait, but like this person is an angel, human, and they want nothing to do with Mormons, but which is fine because of who they are. And so just, I think because it's so ingrained from such an early age, like we need to bring everyone into the fold. We need to bring everyone to the truth. They're missing out. And I think even as people leave the church, it's like, you're missing out. Like your life must be so terrible because you're not part of it anymore. And you're like, no, I'm good. I'm doing something.
They've lost it, or they don't know true happiness anymore. And we're to judge that. They look pretty unhappy too. I think that you're absolutely right. And even looking at, people throughout history, like Mother Teresa, like she's not in heaven, like it is there. I'm sure for a lot of people, you start to question, like, this does not add up. And that is impressive that you were questioning those things from such a young age. I think that that's not always the case. So that goes to show that your intuition was kicking in.
Yeah, it was for sure.
And I think it's important that we discover, I think a lot of us don't discover that until we're older, or get to the point where we trust that in ourselves, like trust intuition in ourselves. We're kind of told what to do for so long that we do look to the leaders or the authority to answer the questions for us, even though we are taught personal revelation, you know?
Yeah.
And whether you believe that's revelation or intuition or inspiration or whatever you believe, like there is light inside of us. Like there is a way for us to discover things and truth on our own, you know?
Yeah. I believe.
So what were your personal views on God? And did you have a connection with God as a child?
I don't think that I really had like views on it until I went through what I went through at 16. And then after that, and then I think that was like a very, I think when you're isolated, when you're on your own and you only have yourself, then you start to really like look at things and have a clear view. I think I was very angry with God for a long time. It took me a long time to like work through all of that. Well, we have days. We have good days and bad days. But yeah, I don't think I remember the day that I gained a testimony that like I knew that there was a God. Like I remember that day so vividly. And it was like, oh, okay. When then that was set in motion, all these other like questions and well, wait, you know? Yeah, I'll never forget that.
What led to that testimony happening?
So I guess like if we backtrack, if we go to, I was 16, I was in high school. I was looking for, I think also growing up in our religion, sometimes love is very conditional because everything is so stuck to everything was about our salvation and doing everything right. So if I was doing the right thing, it was great. If I wasn't, not so good. Going straight to hell in a handbasket. When I was 16, I got pregnant. I had only had sex like twice. Not a good experience. Didn't like it. Like, wouldn't recommend it. And I got pregnant. Which we're very fertile people over here. I watch Handmaid's Tale, and if that really came to pass, I would be a handmaid. Like
I haven't.
I know, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's a crazy show.
I had to stop watching it. I was like, this is too much for me.
Same. Oh my gosh, same. I was like, I can't.
Like, I'm saying I can't do this. And so I guess it's not uncommon for our religion to pretend that it's not happening. And I was sent away to deal with it on my own. I had these really amazing foster parents that took me in, and yeah, but you're 16. And so it was like, well, you are making these decisions and you're choosing this and you're choosing the devil and you're awful and you're horrible. And you're either going to get married to this guy or you're going to place it for adoption and you're going to go live here and you're not going to tell anybody and we're going to just no one's going to know.
Because that's so valuable, like our reputation.
Yeah.
You know?
Our reputation. Yeah. It says if you get pregnant when you're 16, you must be, super promiscuous. You must be awful. You must be all of these things, which I wasn't. And yeah, so like my siblings that had moved out, they were not told for a while. And it was back in the day, it was 2002, 2003. So we didn't have cell phones. Like I didn't have a cell phone. And so I couldn't like just, text them or call them. And so it was very isolating, very tough for sure. So I went through that by myself at 16, and I had the baby. She was adopted, and I went to high school 1 week later in California, in a new state.
Oh my,
What? That is
I
insane.
have so many questions. Was the foster family, were they good people? And then where were you sent and who were you sent to in California?
So my parents had moved to California, so
Okay.
I moved back home, and a week later started high school,
Like nothing happened.
as if nothing happened.
Oh, I can't even imagine, like, when, at least during my pregnancies, I needed my mom. And I was married, I wasn't a teen. I mean, being 16, you're still so young, and you need so much care and nurturing. And, I was 22 when I first got pregnant, and I still needed that. So I can't imagine how isolated that must have been, and how sad you must have felt to be so far away from everyone you know and love, and you're also dealing with these hormones and all of the emotions of giving up a child, and then just go on like nothing happened.
Yeah, I mean, I was not okay for quite a few years after that, for sure. I was not okay, because it is that, and I hid it for so long, for a while, because I was like, I will literally be murdered. This is the worst thing that could happen. And I pretended it didn't happen for a while. Like, I was living in denial and living, just pretending like it's going to go away. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. And it didn't. So yeah, so they didn't want to deal with it. So I went to a family, and they were really great people. And my whole pregnancy, I was with them. So I had a social worker. I went through LDS Family Services, and even that, through that experience, was really tough, because the decision to place the baby is a huge one. There's nothing worse than that. So the first family that I had picked didn't want for heart attacks.
No, take your time. This is heavy stuff.
Sorry, I haven't talked about this in a long time. So it was a whole nother level of rejection. It was I'm being rejected by my parents because they don't want anyone to know this. And I'm being rejected by my older siblings. They didn't even know what was going on, right, until the end. And so there was no one to, who's going to support me, right? So I'm being rejected, and then I'm going through this whole process, and it's this heart-wrenching process, the decision to give your baby to someone. And then the first people, they had already had a biracial child, and I guess the adoptive mom was having major issues with the baby not looking like her. It was a whole separate thing, right? But at 16,
Sure.
you're
You take that.
you're telling me no, yeah, oh, for sure. And then I found the parents that she has, and I was actually really close to her adopted mom for a long time. But yeah, so you do that, and I watched a lot of soap operas, and I read a lot of books, and I will say that the one life lesson, the one positive thing out of that situation, was that I learned how to face challenges. Because before that, and I think even now, some of my siblings, and they don't know how to, it's more of a, let me just pretend it's not happening. It was kind of the space in the world that we lived in was just even with friends and different things like that, I was okay, well, if we have a conflict, it's fine, because I'm going to move, and then I don't ever have to see you again. Which is so interesting looking back. I'm
Yeah.
oh, I didn't know how to deal with a lot of things, because well, I'm just going to a new school, so we have a conflict, but I don't care, because I'm never going to see you again. I'm never going to speak to you again. Yeah, so I did learn how to sit in that space of hurt and all of that, which a lot of people have a hard time sitting in, and facing things head on, and learning that, okay, it's going to be terrible for a while, but it will get better. So faster I can get through and in this part, the faster it's going to hopefully get better. So I will say that that life lesson was huge for me, because I don't think I would have learned that had I not taken out of the home that I was raised in. But then I have this baby, place this baby for adoption, and start high school in a new state 4 years later.
And were you given, did you go to therapy at that point? Was that provided to you, or?
I went to one. Therapy's wasn't like really suggested in our family. Like, I think a lot of old school people, and like back in the day, people were like, oh, you go to a therapist so you can blame other people for your problems. And so I did go to one right after. Then it was like this guy, and he's like, well, how are you doing? And I'm like, fine. So like, that was it. I'm like, this isn't helpful. And I had gone to bishops before that like told me they didn't know what to do with me, like they couldn't handle what I was dealing with. And so I stopped doing that, because I'm like, you're supposed to provide something for me.
Yeah, even if that's here's a therapist that can help you.
Yeah.
That's what it should be,
But I think like now it's like, okay, bishops are just like regular guys,
Right.
that
Yeah.
as a kid you're taught, oh, the bishop is this magical human that's gonna know what to do and help you, and you're like, oh, you guys are actually not equipped for a lot of the challenges that you're faced with the people in your ward. You're like, you learn that as an adult, but as a kid you're like, okay, I'm coming to you, and you're supposed to
make this better.
me, or make this better, or tell me what to do, or whatever. And when they're like, yeah, I don't know, they didn't. So I literally just survived the rest of high school, and it was not good. Not good.
So you went back your junior year.
Yeah, so she was born in March, and so I had about 2 months left, a month and a half left of school, maybe, of my junior year, and then my senior year.
And do you still have contact with her birth mom, or her at all?
So I do have contact with, well, I've been, a part of
her
life.
Sorry, adoptive mom.
Yeah. We stayed in contact. I haven't talked to her the last couple of years, but any kind of ebbs and flows of when I see her, when I don't, type of thing. And it's interesting that her adopted mom, she was a huge, influence for me in my 20s, and as I became a mom and all of that, because she's a super strong, independent woman. So I really looked to her for a lot of guidance.
That's cool. That's beautiful.
Yeah, especially knowing that she's in great care, and that she's being loved. And, I'm sure that is so comforting for you, because I'm sure that, that decision, and maybe you can answer this, like maybe that was a decision that you maybe felt coerced to make. And so I don't know, hearing all of this, it's just so, like, you hear stories like this, but I just picture them long ago, like in the 50s, 60s, but like these things are happening, and they probably are happening still. And so it's so important to share these stories so that other people can heal along with you, and know that they're not the only ones maybe who have gone through this.
Yeah. And
because you for sure feel so lonely, and you're like, no one else would do this to their child. I would not do this to any of my kids if they were in the same situation.
Yeah.
But you're like, oh, it is pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have that conflict resolution that your parents maybe did not have. I mean, they obviously, they couldn't even keep you there to have that conflict and resolution. They had to send you away and have you deal with it on your own. And, I just think they could have, again, it seems like a missed opportunity of bonding and strengthening your relationship with them that they missed out on. And it's unfortunate. And I'm sure they have their own emotions around it. And I'm sure they have, probably regrets and different things. But it is like you said, at least you came out of it a little stronger, maybe. And I don't know. Now you're probably a much better mom for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's interesting too. Like, it's not that long ago. That was like 21 years ago, you know, but in that 21 years, a lot has happened. Like, to give your parents some grace, I think at that time, there just wasn't a lot of tools. There weren't a lot of tools. There wasn't a lot of support for situations like this for people in the church, for people just in general. I think like it was just, and even like therapy was kind of taboo, you know, like I think it just wasn't the way that our world functions now. And so I think we hear that and we're like, can't even wrap our minds around it, you know, and I'm sure it still happens. Like, I'm sure that still exists. But I think back then, like I said, to give them some grace, I think it was just a little bit less, you know, technology wasn't the same. We don't have as much information. We don't have the tools we have now. So I think it was just different. It was different. I used to work for an adoption agency, and I worked for them for, I think it was like 8 years. And I loved it. I loved it so much. But it was so emotional. And so I ended up quitting because of that. And I just worked there. You know, like I can't imagine being a birth mom in that type of situation, especially at 16, you know, like, and without the support that you had. That's a testament to the strength that you've gained from all of these experiences throughout your life. Like, you really are such a strong, independent, amazing woman and mom. Like, I've seen you firsthand with your kids, and we've talked a lot about parenting and things like that. And you're just such an amazing mom. And I think a lot of that comes through our struggles and comes through, like, you know, all of these things happening, and you've had it all. You've had a lot of that. So there you go. This is what it can produce. Can't. So, you know, it doesn't, not everybody comes out of it on top. And that's not to say anything bad about them either. But I'm so glad you came through it. And you mentioned that you are going to therapy now. And, you know, sometimes like we need to feed our souls and our minds and our bodies and all of those things, you know, as a whole. So that's amazing. So, wow. So sorry, I don't want to move on from this quite yet, because I want to know, you mentioned that that was kind of the point that you realized there was a God. So is that when you connected with God, like through this situation?
So I think through that, I was really angry, really upset. Like, how could you... So there's a God that loves us and protects us, but how could you give me parents that would send me away? How could you make me do this by myself? I'm a kid, you know? And so I think for a lot of that, then high school, like, it was really hard. And my relationship with my mom just got worse because there was no empathy, no understanding of what I had just gone through. And it just became well, you're not going to amount to anything because my sins were second to murder, right? Yeah. So I'm like, well, A, that's dumb. But like when you're told that over and over and over. So, you know, I had just gone through the worst thing I'd ever gone through, like one of the hardest things still to date that I've ever gone through in my life. You know, other things to take the top spot, but it was one of those things. And then just to be told that you're not enough. And in church, they, you know, it's like the chewed up piece of gum thing. You're like, oh, you know, you're like, okay, cool. I hate that so much too. And so high school was really hard. And then I'm in California and it's my senior year. And like, I don't have any connection to these people, right? Like, I just, you know, met them, and there's like a couple I'm friends with on social media now, but like a lot of them, I'm like, I couldn't tell you. So I graduated somehow. I started to rebel again a little. I mean, nothing crazy, but just like a little. I wanted to just get out of the house. I wanted to hang out with my friends. because it's like you're being told, well, you're just going to do this again. You're just going to end up the same way. And I'm like, I would never do this again. I would never put myself in this situation again. Like, never. So I graduated high school. I got kicked out. The spirit couldn't be in their home with me in it. So
Oh no.
I was bouncing around with friends and that kind of thing. Anyway, so I was 18, bouncing around, trying to figure out what to do with myself. Like this broken human, like just so broken. And I found myself
Yeah.
in like all my friends were at college. Like I just, and we also grew up where like your option was get a scholarship or go to BYU. Like that was it. And I'm like, I'm not going to BYU. Like, like you're not going to catch me in Utah, which is so funny that this is where I ended up.
Look,
It's kind of funny. I'm like, nope, not a chance. Yeah, so I was 18 and I found myself in a not good situation. And it's just like one of those spaces where you're like, I shouldn't be here. Like, I shouldn't, just who I am, like, I shouldn't be here. And I was in this situation. And it was like super late at night. And somehow I got out of that situation unscathed. And I don't know how. And like, that was the day that I knew that someone was watching out for me. Like, I knew that I was being seen, and I was being protected in that moment. Even me, like, as broken and as awful of a human that I thought that I was, right? Like, just pretty much a murderer because I had sex before I got married, And I was protected in that situation. And so, like, that's what I knew. And I was like, it changed so much for me because I've been told my whole life that I have to do everything a certain way and be perfect and be perfect and be perfect. And here I am being seen, and watched out for. And I'm out of this horrible situation that could have gone so many different ways. And so that was like the first time I was like, oh, that's what a testimony is. So yeah, I'll never forget that. And it kind of like set in motion, okay, well, like, what do I think? What do I feel? What are my views? Like, this whole thing that I've been a part of my whole life, and it's been nothing but heartache and horrible for me. And so really kind of like taking, okay, God and Mormons are not the same. Like, it's not all the same thing, which is really interesting to kind of like navigate through that.
Thank you so much for sharing. That is,
Yeah.
made me misty, and I've had experiences that are so powerful that I've realized, and this was only into my adulthood, where I felt, oh, like, that's Moses parting the Red Sea. Like that, the feeling I had was as strong as that, whether that literally happened or metaphorically happened, like it was that much power behind it. And it's undeniable. And I think, sometimes I think about those things and I think no one needs to believe me on this. Absolutely no one, because I know what it means and I know what it meant for me personally. So I'm so glad that you had that experience. And kind of like you said, like you were at rock bottom and you really needed it. And that makes it even more incredible that it happened when it did.
Yeah, for sure.
You've been through so much. And so you got married in the temple to your husband that you're now divorced. Do you feel like that was on your own accord, or was it to follow the rule or follow what your parents expected?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of like from that dark space that I was in, and you just feel, like I had no self-worth, like none. And so I stayed in California for a while, and I was working, and my brother was like, what are you doing with your life? And I'm like, I work at Best Buy. Like, I'm doing great. Maybe aim a little higher.
Get a big screen with your Disney.
Thanks, sis. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm making $10 an hour. Like, I'm killing it. Anyways, he was like, maybe, like, let's rethink this. So I ended up coming to Utah. So after I graduated high school, I was on the waiting list in California for hair school. Like, I knew always that that's like what I wanted to do. I think, being mixed, and my mom didn't know what to do with her hair, and I, again, like, I always expressed myself. I was always painting my nails. Like, I'm like, these kids don't know how good they've got it now with not Walmart makeup.
Yeah. So true.
So I ended up coming out here to Utah because hair school was way cheaper and I had a place to stay. And so I got a job and I was just working, and my goal was like, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to leave and I'm going to be some big hairdresser in some big city that's not in Utah. Like, I'm here for a short time. That's it. So I was here, I looked at a gym, and I met my ex-husband, and I was just kind of in that space where, like, I had gone through all these things alone, and so I was still looking for someone to love me, because I think at the core, that's what we all want. So I met my ex-husband. I was like, well, yeah, okay, I'll date you, like, I guess, like, okay, like, we dated. He was nice to me, which I think I clung to at the time. And he was a return missionary. So my mom was thrilled.
You got that.
And so I started to get this, like, validation from my mom that I hadn't had before. And so I think, like, probably a lot of people do. Like, I was 20 years old. And it was like, well, we could move in together, but then our parents and our family, like, everyone's going to be so disappointed if we don't get married. So I got married, and I thought that was going to give me, I don't even know if it was so much about him, but I think it was that approval and that love that I wanted from my mom. And I thought that was what was going to give it to me. And it was also like that space of, okay, I've never really been fully into this religion thing, but maybe if I do it your way, you'll love me and everything's going to work out great, because I've just been through hell. So it was kind of like, fine, let me commit to it. Let me do it. And then you realize you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should listen to my intuition on that. So I was married for 10 years. We got married at the temple. Wasn't long after that, but I was like, nope, like, I don't think I can do this. And as I've gotten older, it's really more of I think a lot of my issues with the church is the anxiety and the stress and the trauma that has been tied to it for me. Like, all of my hardest experiences, all of my worst things were, like, terrible things were said to me, that happened to me, were in the name of, or because of, this religion. And so I could do it for a minute, and I'm like, this gives me too much. Like, it's too stressful. Even walking into a church building is like a little like, woo, okay. Like, okay, so.
Yeah, triggering.
Trauma. Yeah.
Very, yeah. So I really had to I had to really work through that. And it took me a while to kind of like get to that space of like, oh, okay, so it's not necessarily like the religion. There are pieces of that, but it's just the way that I was raised in this particular religion that causes me a lot of stress and anxiety. And separating that from my relationship with God was something that I had to like really work through and separate.
It's a hard thing to do. And I think that's part of, there's a lot of talk of like deconstructing and reconstructing right now. And so I think that's part of that, like figuring out and distinguishing the difference. And we just did an interview with an amazing lady that that left the church and just joined another church. And she said kind of a similar thing. Like, I'm trying to figure out who God is. Like, I don't have a picture in my mind yet of who I'm talking to, like I still pray and I want to pray and I want to have like a really good connection with God, but I'm not sure the visual of that yet, and I think sometimes it takes that. So yeah. Interesting. Gosh, what is your biggest struggle with the church in general? Can you pinpoint? I mean, we talked a little bit about the black and white.
Yeah, I think I feel like I mean, I'm not like in it involved or anything, but like I'm around enough people that share enough. And so I think it's getting better. But I think a lot of the shame culture is really hard for me. And I think too, like, I'm someone that has questions and I want someone to be able to explain to me certain things. So I think I never got into any anti stuff. I think you're also taught that as a kid. Like, if someone leaves the church, it's because they got into anti-Mormon stuff. So you're like, I don't think I've ever read an anti-Mormon anything. But I'm fascinated by the history. I'm fascinated by so many pieces of it. And the prophets and polygamy I'm so fascinated by, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts and just different things. And I think one of my problems that I would say I have, where it's really hard for me and my personality, is instead of saying we made a mistake or anything, it's just like, well, we have new revelation now. Well, it's different now. So like, that doesn't matter. We have something new now. And so I have a hard time with that. And it's also probably more the people in it than the actual religion that I also struggle with, because I don't do well with people that think, well, I'm better than you because of this, or I'm gonna shame you because of this, or I'm not gonna whatever because of this, and I'm going to look down on you because of this, or I'm not going to include you because of that. And if you look at like the fundamental core of the teachings of Christ, you're like, that's completely opposite of what Jesus would want you to do. And so I think like there's a lot of things I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And so for me, and I think it's just tied to my childhood. And I'm like, I will never put my kids in a situation where a religion comes before my love for them. And if we look at what the core values are, I believe in those. I think the core, be good, be kind, the emphasis on the family, I think is amazing. Like, I think that that's like a huge thing that I want for my family, and I want my kids to be close to me, and I want us to, be together. So I think there's like a lot of good things, but I think it's just there's too many muddy things for me. There's too much shame, and I'm not like crazy feminist or anything, but I think like I'm a woman, so like I don't know if I'm gonna let you tell me what to do, but yeah, so like I'm not and then a lot of the there's like a podcast about that she like starts telling the stories of the women of all of Joseph Smith's wives, and then they said that, and it was like one of the most fascinating things that I've ever listened to. And I remember like having conversations with people, they're like, Joseph Smith wasn't a polygamist. And you're like, yeah, he was. Like, yeah, he was. And it's so interesting. And so there's just like pieces of it. You're like, should we put him on a pedestal? Probably not. Am I angry about it? Am I like upset for whatever? No, I just think for me, there's just too many things where I'm like, I'm better off without some with those influences, but also I think too, you also can't, I'm not going to go the opposite extreme either, because there are some really amazing values that I use as a human today. I think there's really amazing things that I implement with my kids. And so
I think any
it's
extreme,
complicated.
yeah, any extreme is hard for me to reconcile, for sure. And it's understandable.
It's interesting to watch.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch people go from, like, I feel like I know a lot of people that have left the church and are so angry about it. And so it's just like, you're on that opposite, you're doing the same thing because you're just on that opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like, well, I'm mad at the church because of this, or I'm mad at the church because of this. And for me, it's like, there's enough that has caused a lot of negative things in my life. So I'm going to just like take the good perks of it. And if you want to be in it, great. Like, that's fine. But I'm good.
Yeah, I love that attitude and respect for people and their decisions and wherever they're at. I think that's important. Yeah. So have you officially left the church, and how did that transpire?
No, because that's like the taking my name off or whatever. Like, I don't feel like I need that. And I think I've also had to kind of come to a space of, the way that I was raised was so, it's only this way and it's only that. And I also like didn't understand that there's a lot of Mormons that are kind of like, there's different levels of being Mormon. And for me, that was a really weird concept to try to understand. I'm like, wait, what? Like, like you only do parts of it? Like, that's not allowed. And that's just, because that's just like so ingrained in me. Yeah, it's so interesting. So no, like, in my family, like, I have family members that are in it, my family members that are not in it. I had friends that are in it, friends that are not. Like, that's just, I don't care if you are or if you're not. Like, that's not what I base my friendships or relationships on. So for me, I didn't ever take my name off. Like, and I've gone here and there, like, hey, I need it, so I guess I'll go. Like, I don't know. And
Interesting.
yeah, and I've met a lot of people, and some of them are great and some of them are not. So for me, I didn't take my name off. Like, that's just like, I had enough going on. I don't need to like make it official. I don't feel like it's gonna do something for me to take my name off the records. I don't know. And some people, for them, that's like a big moment and a big defining moment for them. And for me, it's just like, well, no, I'm not gonna go, but
Right.
I'm also not gonna like go to that level.
Yeah, that
Makes
makes sense.
Sounds like you're in a very peaceful place about it. And I think it's okay for people to be angry or upset, but I love what you said about, we have to be careful to not become hypocrites, like people who leave the church because they felt judged or mistreated, and now they're doing the judging and mistreating. And I think it can go both directions. And so we just need to be mindful of that, I think. And also, we got to fight the idea and not the people, or not like blanket statement entire groups of people, because like you said, there's good people in the church, there's good people out of the church, there's mean people in the church, mean people, there's just, it really makes no difference. And I love that you said that.
Yeah, I agree. I am curious where you're at now with your beliefs. Like, do you feel connected to God still? And what do you believe in now?
I do believe in God. I don't know necessarily like what that looks like, who he is, I definitely feel connected to that. I can't say that I don't think that there's someone out there. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't believe that, because there's someone. So I definitely believe in God, and that's just kind of where it's at. Like, I'm just like, you know what, if I try to be a good person, because I hope that will come back to me. I don't know what the afterlife looks like. I don't I'm not going to Celestial Kingdom because I'm not going to be a polygamist.
Anyone wants to be
Yeah. Not much of what?
Oh,
Just say, but your original is not okay.
No, so I don't know. I know, like, I don't have all the answers. I know there's a lot we don't know, but I do believe that there's a God and that there's something for us. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. And I just try to be a good person and hope that hopefully it'll come back to me at some point, you know? But yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah. I love how vulnerable you are about just admitting that you don't know. And I think that
Yeah.
as humans, we're afraid to say that sometimes. And there's beauty in that. I truly believe there's beauty in the mystery and just knowing that, you know, it's from what I'm hearing from you is like you believe in some kind of God or cosmic force that propels you to do good. And that's enough, you know, like we don't need to know all the answers because you're doing so well and you're this very independent, strong woman and great role model for your kids. And that's amazing. And that's not nothing, you know, like we sometimes we don't need more than that. And yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
So would you say, on the subject of your kids, do they believe in anything or do they attend church with your ex-husband or are they kind of like you and just have their own spiritualities?
So my ex-husband left the church before I did, actually.
Okay.
So he's not involved. My oldest son, he got baptized when he was 12. Because I also didn't want to be like, no, you can't. Because I didn't want to like perpetuate that either. So he had an amazing group of friends, and the leaders that were supporting him were phenomenal, like just really good humans. And so he was going regularly with his grandma, and he wanted to get baptized. So did a huge baptism for him when he was 12, and it was great. And it's kind of funny, my next son, he has always been he loves Halloween, and he loves ghosts, and he loves everything spooky, and he'd be like, Mom, did you feel that? He's like, did you feel that? It's the Holy Ghost. I'm like, no, it's not that kind of ghost. He's like, oh, did you feel that? Like, oh, did you hear that? I'm like, no, it's like, it's the Holy Ghost. I'm like, it's not that kind of ghost. So no,
that's amazing.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, stop it. Look, you feel that? Like, that's kind of creepy. I'm like, no, the Holy Ghost is not creepy. So my oldest,
I love that.
oh my gosh,
Yes,
loves it. So yeah, so my oldest, he did.
Crazy.
My younger ones, they just don't really have an interest, and so we don't go. I've been like, well, if you want to go, you can. And I think at all points they've all been like, well, do I need to get baptized? Because everyone else is getting baptized. And for me, I'm like, well, if you want to do that, that's fine. But you have to go. Like, you have to go. You have to participate. You have to be involved in it. And I can absolutely support you in that. But if you're just doing it so you can have a party and get presents, like, no, you're not doing it for that. So just my oldest is the only one that has, and then the other ones, they just don't really have an interest. And it's actually been interesting because you hear horror stories about not being LDS and going to school and whatever. And my kids, they got great friends and they've got great people, and so we haven't particularly experienced that, like them not being included because they don't go to church or whatever.
Nice.
It's
good.
But yeah, so I mean, if they decide, like, if they have an interest, then okay, but if they don't, that's perfectly fine too.
I love that you're willing to give them that too. I mean, talking about agency, what a beautiful gift for them, and something that you grew up without, you know, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's so beautiful that you've given them that gift. And you know, church can be so many different things. Like, we believe that we believe you can worship in nature, or honestly, like, just having good friends around you is huge. And that's what we're here to do, is to love and connect and lift each other. And it sounds like your household is that way.
Yeah. well, I caught myself being like, no, you can't. Like, no, 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 no way you're going to get baptized. Like, absolutely not. And so I had to kind of like pull it back and be like, well, wait, because I had to, and I had to do this, and I had to do that, and I had to go to these things, and I didn't have the option. And so I had to like check myself and be like, well, wait a second. If this is something that helps them and uplifts them and is a positive impact in their life, then who am I to take that away from them?
That's huge.
So I definitely, yeah.
That's so big of you. And I feel like that's what parenthood is in a lot of ways, is like checking our own fears at the door. And it can be so hard. And especially when you have real life traumatic events that happen to your fears with them.
Yeah, for sure. What brings you joy and purpose in your life today?
I mean, I'd probably say my kids. I have 5 of them. She's a lot. Yeah, no, my kids. As my oldest is 16 now, and go 13 and 12, and just like as they're figuring out who they are, and watching that and being a part of that is so fulfilling on so many levels. I feel like because of my life and challenges that I went through, I feel like I had to fight through a lot to become the person that I wanted to be and the person that I am. And for them, it's really amazing to watch them find their people, find the things that they love, like become these amazing, amazing humans. And so I love that I take pride in that, the mother that I am to them, and watching them and the impact that they're making on the people around them is just really amazing to be a part of. So definitely everything I do is for them at this point. And yeah, I just like hope I'm putting out some pretty cool people into this crazy, crazy world we live in.
You really are an amazing mother, and it's
Sure you are.
It's incredible that because you could have really gone the other direction. You know, you could have been a little bit more controlling and done things in the same way that things that you grew up, and you kind of totally turned that around. And you are I can see that your whole world is your kids, and you go to sports practices and games and like all of those things, and it really seems to be your whole life and your whole world. And I've just seen them a little bit, and they seem like amazing little humans just like you. So it's incredible that you've come through so well and done so many great things.
Well, it's an interesting, like I remember my grandma watching, the things that she did that impacted my mother into the way that she is as a mother to us. And I just like watching that cycle kind of repeat itself. It was like, no, nope, I'm not going to do that. So I think I, for a lot of years, it was like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm healed and that I work through my things so that I don't dump that onto my kids, because I don't want that for them. So it really has been a huge focus just in my life as a whole, is making sure that I am good, because if I'm not, then they're not. So, but yeah, because I don't want them to have to, it's like those extremes, it's the things, it's just, there's so many different ways that you can traumatize your kids. I'm sure they're going to be traumatized by something or other,
Right.
They all have.
They all are.
Yeah, but I love that. I love that you recognize that you needed to break the chain, and you had the courage to do that, and also you took the time to heal. I feel like this world could be such a better place if we all just took the time to help ourselves, to heal ourselves through therapy or whatever means. But we have to put our mask on first in the airplane before we can help our kids with theirs. Like we really do. And it's not selfish. In fact, it's selfless. So what a great example you are of that.
Yeah, for sure. for the last question, it's a very silly question, but we like it because I would totally like listen to an entire episode just to hear this part about people. Anyway, so you can choose two questions. You can tell us an embarrassing story, or you can answer this question. If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
I mean, I have a lot of embarrassing stories. I pretty much just embarrass myself regularly. And I have so many theme songs probably that it's like, there's just too many. But I was listening to songs lately, like those, you listen to songs from when you were a kid and you're like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that that's what that song was about. Because I loved like all the Boys to Men songs. It's like all these heartbreak songs. I'm like middle school or elementary school thinking like these are the greatest things, like belting them out.
Wasn't it?
No, it's
Crazy. I know. I hear him back like on TikToks or whatever, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I
You're
had
so dirty.
no idea.
Yes,
We're
no
all
idea.
singing that. Totally naive too. Like it's just kind of more embarrassing.
so embarrassing. So let's see. Well, in junior high, I've had my most embarrassing story ever, other than like walking through Costco with a big hole in the back of my pants. Yeah, like my pocket had like
No.
split. Yeah, people were looking at me. I'm thinking I look so cute. And it was nope, hole in my pants.
That's the worst. That's the worst.
That one was pretty bad. Yeah, but probably junior high, I was walking up these stairs, like running late to a class. There was like the cutest boys in school at the top of the stairs, and I fell down the stairs. And so I like tried to play it off, and then I got back up and started walking up the stairs, and I fell down the stairs again.
Oh,
And they just laughed at me, and I
oh no, twice in a row.
just were you injured? Like, I'm fine. No, just like
Just your pride.
just my pride. My still my pride. Put it away. Just still injured.
Twice.
Yeah,
Like,
twice.
we recover it.
Those are the worst.
Completely.
You think back on it, it like still hurts. You know, he's like,
They were the cutest boys. Just like couldn't be any cuter, and I felt twice.
Either.
Yeah.
Oh,
oh my god,
that's hilarious. And honestly, all of these stories just make me feel bad about myself because I'm
I
like,
know.
I've had a million stories like that as well. So I'm like, we're all created.
It's true. Like on a daily basis, I'm like, I just should not be in public. Like,
Yeah.
with me, I'm so awkward sometimes.
And here we are on a podcast.
What are we thinking? But we can edit this. That's the difference. I can't edit my life.
Only. Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been, I've heard so much about you, so it's just so nice to like put your face to your story and name. And thank you for being vulnerable, because I know these things are really difficult to talk about, and we just feel honored that you're here with us tonight.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. For sure.
Is there anything you want to share at the end that you were like, I really wanted to share this or end with?
Yeah, I just hope that I mean, if you can impact someone or help someone out or like make someone feel a little less lonely, then that's all I could ask for. Hopefully my experiences can help someone in a positive way, and that's really all I can ask for. And you can go through hard things and get through them and be okay, or not be okay and pretend you're fine, just laugh through it all. That's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you'll help so many. So thank you so much.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to That's Church. Kelly's story reminds us that healing doesn't require having all the answers. It requires honesty, courage, and a willingness to listen inward. If this episode resonated with you or made you feel a little less alone, we hope you'll share it with someone who might need it. We also want to remind you about our event, Becoming Sovereign, on March 7th at 6 p.m., with doors opening at 5:30 at the Compass Gallery in Provo, Utah. We will be hearing from presenters MacArthur Krishna, Amy Watkins Jensen from Women on the Stand, and Maxine Hanks. It's going to be amazing. As we head into season 3, we're shifting our focus a bit. This season will feature more leaders from faith traditions, professional speakers, and religious leaders we align with, primarily from outside of our own religion. Some of our first upcoming guests we're especially excited to share, including the Naked Pastor, David Hayward, and Gerlin Henry, along with a long list of thoughtful, inspiring voices you won't want to miss. Lastly, we are currently looking for a podcast editor. If you or someone you know has experience editing podcasts and loves thoughtful, story-driven content, please reach out to us through our social channels. Thank you again for being here, for listening with open hearts, and for continuing this journey with us. Follow us on Instagram at That's Church Podcast, and our website is thatschurch.org.